Celebrating my 100th comment on my R5 Mark II first impressions video this morning. I've never had this many comments on a video. Some of them were negative, even though I did everything perfectly. So like, what do I do in this situation? Like go in and type a response to every single comment? No, I don't have time for that. I'm going to address every single comment in this video, all 100 of them. Let's go. Okay, so two things before we get started. First, I'll catch you up on what you missed in the video if you didn't see it. So I took out the R5 Mark II for a first outing, something I wouldn't normally report on, but I had a few issues that I thought were worth sharing. First, I thought the menu change was a step in the wrong direction. Not a big deal, but didn't like it. Had some battery issues. The battery drained quickly. It took a long time to recharge. There are lots of restrictions if you try to use a battery other than the supplied battery. And the supply of the new LPE6P batteries for the camera is in very short supply. So it's sort of like a compounding problem with the batteries. And then the camera was glitching out on me when I was trying to use it frequently. So I'd go to make a clip with the camera. Instead of being able to see what I was shooting, I would either see a black or a green glitchy screen. The second thing is a lot of these issues have changed since I made that video. And after I answer all these comments, I'll discuss sort of the status of the camera a couple weeks later. So with that out of the way, let's bring on the comments. So I haven't even read all these. Some of these you and I will be seeing for the first time. Or maybe you read my comments more than I do and you've seen them before. First comment, can't take you seriously. I'm not a serious person. I think that's fair. The fact that you have a Tamron lens on an A-grade Canon camera says it all. This is okay, so this is from the comments I have read. I know this is going to be a repeat issue. So some eagle-eyed viewers noticed that I was demonstrating the camera with like an old adapted Tamron first generation DSLR lens attached. I don't know how you guys figured this out. I'm using an old generation adapted third-party DSLR lens. This is like the Mark I version of the Tamron 24-70 2.8, but I just can't put anything past you. So yes, I was using the camera with an older lens. I tried to be pretty transparent about that so that you could gauge whether what I was talking about was like relevant to your shooting situation. I don't own any RF lenses. One of my three cameras, my cinema camera, is an EF mount cinema camera, and so right, that means if I buy an RF mount, it automatically gets like 2/3 of the value that an EF mount lens purchase would have, because I can only use an RF mount lens on two of my cameras. And the RF mount lenses are already not a great value. So my choice for standard focal length lenses on the EF mount are sort of the Canon mount, which is not image stabilized, or the Tamron and Sigmas. And you know, I've owned two of the version 2 of the Tamron 24-70 2.8, which, you know, it's a serviceable lens, but it doesn't work on cinema cameras. It's a weird quirk with like how they've implemented the EF mount on the Tamron version 2. So that really leaves me with only one choice if I want a stabilized EF mount standard focal length zoom lens, and that lens is the version 1 of the EF mount Tamron 24-70 f2.8. So that's a little bit about the lens. Moving on. This is by far Canon's best camera to date. Maybe. Totally disagree on your comments. Cool. In fact, you're the first reviewer to state such negatives. I kind of doubt that. I think we'll see some agreement in the comments. Hey, you're entitled to your opinion. True. By the way, I have owned some cameras, so this guy's owned some cameras, loves the autofocus, thinks I'll probably enjoy the camera more with an RF mount lens. Very likely. Okay. Just start to appear so many problems with this camera. Next stop, AF issues. Maybe. Okay. This is the best camera I've ever used. Please do understand that nothing is perfect in this world. Sure. So my experience was not that the camera was imperfect. It was that the camera was inoperable. Do you still have the small someone asking me to follow up with a review of a product that I reviewed previously? We'll try to get that out because I'd kind of like to follow up with that as well. First timer watching your content, that'll be back. Enjoy your R5 too. Okay, batteries aren't supposed to ship with a full charge. So one of my comments on the batteries was, I mean, not necessarily that they arrive discharged, although in my experience, some batteries do arrive charged in some products and some arrive discharged. These arrive discharged. My comment was more that it took so long to charge a fully discharged battery, which is a problem when you can't buy like a fleet of batteries to keep your camera in service. Okay. My R5 II has been a fantastic upgrade for my R5, my favorite camera. Don't relate to a single point in my video. Work on being a better photographer and give up the YouTube dream. All right, so I'm not sure what the YouTube dream is. Always do work on being a better photographer, though great clickbait. So I don't know if there's like an agreed definition. I think, so this person is saying that my video is clickbait. Maybe I'll discuss this later, but like my video is just an honest representation of my experiences. The way I interpret the word clickbait is sort of if I made like a sensationalized review using untrue or stretched claims. I don't feel like that's what I did with my video, even down to the title and thumbnail, because I called the Canon R5 Mark II the worst camera I've ever used. I don't know how else to assess a camera where you can't see what you're shooting, but sure, maybe the video is clickbait to this viewer. Agenda boy, cut your bangs and read up on how to use it. How to use my bangs? Maybe how to use the camera? I'm getting a haircut next month. Come back. Okay, 10 minutes of useless talk about how I didn't have the patience to wait for the battery to charge. I mean, I think I have realistic expectations about how long it takes a modern battery to charge in 2024 that the camera did not live up to, but sure. After that, I complained about issues with third-party lenses. I think we talked a little bit about that. Actually, no, I don't think I specifically talked about having any issue using a third-party lens on the camera. I think a consistent theme in the threads is that there's an assumption that the third-party lens I used must have been causing the glitch issues with the camera, and we'll talk more about that after the video. Not an unreasonable assumption, but again, not a provable assumption, and ultimately not a correct assumption. Worst of all, I went to an event with a brand new camera without even trying it first. The fault is only you and reflects mostly on you. Well, I don't see any reason not to use the camera at an event. To be clear, the camera was one of 3 cameras and a drone that I had with me at the event, so I was still providing good service to the event. Why not whip out a new camera and try it? I can encapsulate the essence of your video with the timeless proverb, a bad workman always blames his tools. I don't want to take offense to that, but frankly, I feel like I got pretty good footage out of a camera where the screen didn't work, so I don't know if I would agree that I was a bad workman in that instance. You explain why you call the R5 II the worst camera I've ever used. I tried to, but that description still seems hyperbolic. I'll let you make that judgment. I've certainly never used a camera. I've never had a more frustrating experience using a camera. Okay, battery issues aside, and it doesn't become a toy camera after 1.5 hours. So I made a claim in the video that the camera essentially becomes a toy camera after your one battery discharges because of the restrictions that it imposes when you try to use an older battery. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but let me finish this comment. If I have one more LPE6P battery, my experience would be better and the internet would be on fire if this was an actual problem. First thing I would do is change the body for a new one, right? So talking about a repair course, we'll get more into that when I talk about what the specific issues were with my camera afterwards. I would like to, so this is how I would describe it. So when you get this is the reason that this analogy popped into my head. So, a few months ago, I made a video about my experience using the Amazon Vine, where you get all this like low quality merchandise for free to review it. And one of the things that I bought is something that I wouldn't use very often and probably haven't used something like this in a long time, is a toy camera. I got it for my girlfriend's daughter. And you know, when you turn this camera on and you can't change like the stuff we're used to changing in a modern mirrorless camera. You can't change the frame rate. You can't change the resolution, right? Maybe you can like make the image a little brighter or darker, but you don't have a lot of creative control over how the video is made. That's the way the R5 II is when you turn this on with an LPE6NH battery. You're locked into 30 frames per second, a Canon color profile, 4K, all the creative things that you might use to change the look of the footage. You don't have access to it, and so it really felt like just turning on a toy camera. If I had one more LPE6P battery, right? And then this comment about if I had one more LPE6P battery, right? That really is the nature of my complaint, is that you can't change that behavior because you can't buy more batteries to ameliorate that problem. Okay, this guy says, no problem with the black screen. Thank you for backing me up on that. Others have reported this with regards to the video recording time. Were both set to 4K 1080p, or was the R5 set to a higher resolution format? Right, so I wanted to discharge a bunch of batteries and I put them in different cameras to discharge them, the R5 Mark II and my R7, and noticed that there was a big disparity in the recording times when I was doing that. I wasn't trying to do a battery test, but I just had an observation there that I shared. Right, and so I think this viewer was asking if I got worse runtime on the R5 Mark II because it was set to perhaps to the higher, to the oversampled recording mode, and though I did answer this in the video, the R5 Mark II was set to the 4K line skip mode and got something like 47 minutes less recording time than the R7 did, shooting at 4K 60. So just an interesting observation. And some complaints about Canon's practices with the battery. Clickbait alert, some people will do anything for YouTube interactions banned from my search. On your bike, pedal faster. I'm not sure exactly what this is. Got a glitch sample that happens. What I didn't understand about the setting quality and size, I don't know. Canon has changed that for centuries. I might look into that, but that's potentially true. What confused me about so what this commenter is talking about is I found it confusing that when you go to set the camera from JPEG to RAW, it's done in two separate menus, and to the best of my recollection, again, I'll have to look into this, this was formerly set in one menu, but what made this confusing is that when I'm scrolling through the menus trying to find a certain setting, I'm not just looking for the name of that setting, though that name I'm pretty sure did change in the menu. I'm also looking for it when it says like what the setting is to the side, because if I'm looking for the word JPEG or RAW, right, that can help me find it if I'm not exactly sure what the name of the menu item is. And if the camera is not set to shoot RAW, this menu item doesn't display anything there in the menus. I'll try to put a screenshot of that up. So anyway, since you asked, that was my specific issue with that. And that was not my biggest complaint with the menus, and I don't think I dwelled on it for too long, but I think it's, again, like I said in the intro, just sort of a step in the wrong direction. Canon batteries have always taken a long time to charge. Okay, I don't know if that's better or worse. Still a problem. Backwards incompatibility with batteries are sad. Yes, true that I agree that this is also sort of a bad trend with the way that Canon is heavily reliant, that Canon RF lenses are heavily reliant on in-camera corrections to provide an undistorted and peripheral illumination corrected image. Right, I would like to think if I'm buying an RF lens that maybe this is something I could use not only on an RF mount camera from Canon, but perhaps maybe on like a Red Cinema camera or something. But the problem is you don't get those corrections, and the more heavily the lenses rely on these software corrections, just the less useful they are. So I agree this is not a great trend. Good grief! Moaning about batteries for 10 minutes straight, and then admitting they recorded the video in the wrong format and criticized the camera. So like I said, the format that I used was actually more forgiving to the R5 Mark II, not less forgiving. So it's what was interesting to me about that was I recorded the cameras in different formats, with the R5 Mark II using a lower power drain format, even despite that, the battery lasted less long. So just to clarify that. Like any product, there'll be some niggles with software, firmware fixes, etc. But there's no way this is the worst camera I've ever used. It's certainly the worst experience I've ever had using a camera. I was not being disingenuous about that. Get it replaced under warranty. The video if you're pure clickbait, or do I not understand how to use a camera? I don't know, you decide. Despite my curiosity, the comments saved me 17 minutes of my life. Thank you. That's why they're there, I suppose. If I don't want the camera, I'll gladly take it from you for free. I'll consider that. What kind of dinosaur is it I mounted on the adapter? Do I think this lens was compliant with the F-mount protocols? Why don't I use the RF Nifty 50? So I think the nature of this comment is, why don't I buy a lens just to test it on cameras for YouTube reviews? I'll let you decide if you think that would make sense for me to do. To my mind, no. So if said lens, so this is sort of a sub-comments here. If lenses worked with R mount bodies before, they're compliant with the protocol. So I'm not sure that's really a safe assumption, right? So I think maybe this is a little bit of a conversation about how lenses historically use the EF mount and whether they're sort of compliant with some sort of open protocol that was released to lens manufacturers, or whether it's more to my understanding that these lenses were sort of backwards engineered to sort of figure out how the EF mount works without supplied technical documentation. So I don't think it's an assumption that just because a lens worked on an EF mount that it will always work, or that it's built to the standard that Canon has developed for that lens mount. However, it's an interesting thought exercise. This is supposed to be satire, right? Dude was frustrated with a battery needing to be charged right out of the gate. Canon fan guys, oh, am I supposed to have a comment to that? Right, not frustrated that the battery needed charged, frustrated of how long it took to charge, and that there's no. I feel like I'm repeating this comment. You get it. Canon fan guys love the camera, and I hate it for telling the truth. Compare comments. Fanboys are pretty rampant. They have to justify blah 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 blah. I'm not sure this is something I need to insert myself into the middle of. Camera is too advanced for me. I'll say. I complain about the camera when it's really just a skill issue. So I don't know. There's some. Yeah, you lost me at same day at an event. Same day, you are using the camera at day of arrival at an event. Rookie, you want a fully charged battery? Come on. So I think maybe what both of these comments are getting at is like, do I have the experience necessary to make an assessment of this camera? Okay, so here's just like a word of advice, because I use YouTube as an information reference pretty consistently. For one thing, I can put it on in the background while I'm doing editing and computer work and just sort of like get information while I'm working, right? That's very productive for me. The other reason is I like to hear people's actual experiences using the cameras. What goes hand in hand with that is when I get information from a YouTuber, right? I've got to consider, well, this person may not have any particular qualification, and so I have to sort of make an assessment of the credibility of that person. And I also have to consider that the information they're providing may be not relevant to the way I would use a camera. So, right, what I try to do is give enough information in the video that you can make those assessments for yourself as to whether the information I'm providing is relevant to your use case and whether I'm a credible presenter of information. So that's like the assessment that I use anyway when I'm getting information from YouTube. Yes, this is relevant and credible. Lock that away for future use. No, this is not. This is information for someone else. Go to the next piece of information, right? That's, I think, would be a good recommendation for how to make your information-seeking enterprise on YouTube a productive enterprise. Okay, at everyone. Interesting, bought a Z8 system, blown away with the technology. Heard that camera's awesome. Seems that when a company's on the ropes and death seems imminent, the engineers produce their best work. Z8's a cracking camera, right? So we're kind of talking about the Z8 and maybe wondering if Canon is enjoying a little privilege that because of their, the market share that they enjoy, that they don't have to be as innovative. Maybe there's something to that. Next person, Nikon are the worst cameras. Who knows? We got to figure this out right here. I'm a Canon user. I don't think Sony or Nikon or Sony are the worst. They're all great once you're used to them. That's generally true. A Nikon offers better dynamic range, blah, blah, blah. Z8, Z9, so I don't know, we're like battling cameras in the comments of this video. Pros and cons to each. 4 minutes just talking about the battery and why the camera wasn't ready for the moment you took it out of the box, which by the way was the power bank or an older battery, and it works. Well, I think I should at least clarify, if you didn't catch this in the video, that using an older battery is not a really great solution for gaining the access to the full feature set in this camera. Okay, really concerned with the issues you had, wondering where it went wrong, as I had none of the issues you had. I think we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, the biggest failure is usually losing the type of clickbait video which could get you more subscribers. You've got to be smarter than this for your sake. For reference, you're on my never suggest this channel list. Didn't even know you could do that. For the record, I got 18 subscribers from this video. Is that good or bad? I don't know. It's not the camera. It definitely was the camera. Same issues with the R5 II, black and green screen, many more. Even with new firmware, sometimes black screen happens. Okay, yeah. So this is an actual problem. This is an actual problem with the camera. Okay, sounds like you received a damaged camera, return it and that's all. Hopefully it doesn't come down to that. Whatever, agreed, should have pinned that comment. Thank you for your honest review. Always nice when the first buyers get to beta test, right? Exactly. And like I said, I've been waiting for a Canon to make a camera with the capability of this camera for a long time, and that does put me into sort of the public beta testing phase. Black screen issue is funky, first time you've ever seen it. again, that's why I shared that information. Happy to sort of give you a preview of that before you buy or use the camera. About long recording sessions, can't speak for the R5 II. With the other Canon cameras, I've always used either USB-C or dummy battery. Cool, this enables basically unlimited charging for streaming sessions without draining the camera battery. Great. Okay, all your issues with the camera have done nothing with the camera, nothing to do with you and your out-of-date accessories and skill set. An R5 II, understand the battery issues you raised. They don't take 3 hours to charge. That's awesome for you. What charger are you using? In the video, I discussed at length the 3 different chargers that I used. The supplied charger, the charging in the camera, and charging on a third-party rapid charger. What is the bitrate and recording quality of the footage look like for my 3-hour recording session on my R7? I don't believe it was 3 hours, but I was recording in 4K 60 HEVC long op 10-bit. There are not a lot of different recording options on the R7 using the IPB, full IPB, not the IPB Lite. Also question your decision to put a new camera in the middle of an event, use it straight out of the box, not very professional. And in a live event, you're using on a third-party lens and SD cards that I claim to be not great. And then, right, so again, and some commenters come to my defense to say that, to clarify that I was shooting the event pro bono. But so, yeah, I think it probably would have been more unprofessional for me to share footage from an event that I was being paid to shoot. I was trying to use the fact that I was shooting this event for free to gather footage to share with you. I think the problem is not with the camera, user error. That's me, I'm the user. Maybe. All about making money on YouTube as a clickbait. I think I made $16 on this video, so clickbait at its best. I think that's a compliment. Weaknesses with this camera that I didn't even mention. Clearly someone who hasn't understood this body yet felt an urge to show that to the world. So I don't, listen, I don't know if I'd use this camera for a year before I made the video, or if I had like 20 years of experience instead of 15 years of experience as a photographer, if it would have changed the results that I had when I used the camera. And neither do I regret sharing the results that I had. Okay, I took delivery of the R5 II a month ago, used it every day since, not experienced any issues, certainly not a black screen, that's great. Someone points out that it is happening. It either is or isn't happening. It is happening. It is happening. I figured out why it happens. I can probably help you make it happen on your camera if you want it to. So stay tuned, I'll tell you about that. Sorry having so many issues, it's okay. Upgrading from the R5, I'm okay. Upgrading the R5 to shoot wildlife for pre-capture. Right, I would like to cover some more of these advanced features on the R5 II. Some of them are pretty freaking awesome. We'll get there. What an elitist edgelord. Some people have made up their mind to fail before they even try. Yeah, so I don't know if that was... I actually would have loved for the camera to work, but before I do that, I think I need to Google what this word means, because I'm not even sure... What? I'm not even sure that this is appropriate. Okay, I think this is safe. I don't know, sounds like the camera had some serious bugs to flesh out. I don't think having a screen that works is asking too much for $4,200. I don't know, that sounds reasonable to me. The only one with issues, I'm the only person in the world with issues. This viewer is loving their R6 Mark II. Crappy dynamic range, right? These are issues I'd like to test on the camera more, further in depth. What rubbish you talk? You said that I charged the battery for an hour at 75% charge, then 3 hours later it was still charging. If that's what I said, that's what I said. Listen, the batteries charge really slowly, and I don't have any reason to make an apology on behalf of Canon for that. In my opinion, they're out of standard with modern battery technology, which is crazy because they keep updating the batteries. None of the battery issues you mentioned before bother me. I'm actually really enjoying the new photo and video features. Good for you. What a ridiculous title. Have I used any other camera? I struggle to think of very many Canon cameras that I haven't used, but yes, I've used lots of other cameras. It's best camera, you just failed to use it properly. Crap! At the end of my career, I can say one thing, never buy the latest and greatest. I think probably that's a lesson you can learn from this video, maybe a lesson I can learn. Since this commenter is the contented owner of an R7 and R6 II, they just tuned in to hear a rant as they work the computer. Hey, that's how I use YouTube too. Well, I tend to be slow to accept the new. right? Again, maybe repeat lesson. You can skip a lot of frustrations by giving a camera some time. Wonders if they see a big difference in performance with an RF lens. Probably in some areas, not with regards to the issues that I had. Blah, blah, blah. Why you use the old Tamron lens. Guess a different discussion on the intent of the video. I attempt not to second guess the lenses that others use. Appreciate that, but genuinely curious if we've come to the point where newer R lenses are no longer compatible with third-party EF mount lenses. Hope not, but maybe. And then some discussion about whether Nikon lenses are even worse than Canon lenses about using adapted DSLR lenses. Okay. Woo! Got through them all. Wait, I'm screen recording. Crap. We did it and it didn't melt my brain. I think it melted a little bit of my brain. Okay, the last thing I wanted to talk about was to update you on the status of the camera. The R5 Mark II received a firmware update that did fix a lot of the problems, and the batteries are in stock. How about that? So first off, for the black and green screen issue that I had, I did play with this a lot so that I developed a method to consistently cause the issue to occur. And what I would do, regardless of whether this was my Dinosaur Tamron lens, an adapted EF mount lens, which is what I have on the camera now, which is at least a Canon lens, or whether an RF mount lens is adapted. And here's what I would do. I would put the camera into video mode, turn it on. Right. Turn it on, record a clip, stop recording, shut the screen, wait for the EVF to shut off, open the screen, and there would be my black screen. And if I did this procedure in 4K 120 specifically, I was also very likely to be able to replicate the glitchy green screen as opposed to just the black screen, which seemed to be more prevalent in the lower frame rate recording modes. This is a problem for me because that's kind of the way I shoot an event. I'll record a clip, shut the screen, put it to my side, kind of anticipate that something might be happening soon, so not necessarily turning the camera off, but probably within the window of the EVF turning off, be picking up the camera again, open the screen, and then I would have that issue. That's what was causing that issue, and Canon did fix it in a firmware. Since I updated the camera to the 1.0.1 firmware, I haven't been able to replicate this issue, so I'm going to consider that to be resolved. Thank you, Canon, for the swift firmware update. Wish this wasn't a problem when the camera came out, but nevertheless, at least it's resolved. And the batteries are in stock, so that also alleviates that concern. How do I think about the camera now? Well, now I can move into some more in-depth and involved testing, side-by-side testing with other cameras, the kinds of stuff that I normally do on the channel. I encourage you to subscribe and stick along for that. Hopefully I didn't murder you with these comments. What I really hope I did was provide useful responses to the comments that I didn't have time to go in and type out. And that's it for today. See you guys next time. Keep an eye out and flip forward. Thanks for watching. Bye. Woo!